Like a bullet.
What is up guys, Goliath here today, and I'm bringing you a great tutorial. And this tutorial is going to be something that I've been asked by a few people, and that is to make a 3D motion track tutorial. So I was seen doing this in my latest upload of the Team Taj trailer. So if I go through this, and as you can see just about here, I got asked whereabouts or how did I make this P. Now to do this you need a few programs such as Cinema 4D, After Effects and Boju, which I used to make this. However, we'll be doing a separate tutorial on how to do the 2D text, so just to watch it one more time to see what it looks like, and it looks pretty cool. So we're teaching you how to actually do the effects and to actually make it look nice within a scene. So the 2D text will be recorded, it'll be another tutorial another time, but that's just done in literally Boju and After Effects. So it's a little bit, it's missing out Cinema 4D, and it's a little bit quicker, it doesn't take so long to render, but I like the 3D effect sometimes. So what I'll be showing you today is obviously the project file. So if I get roughly quite a nice amount of likes, I'll upload the project files onto my website, which is something I strongly suggest that people would check out. It's currently making it at the moment, but it's going pretty well at the moment. So it's called Goliath Manifest. So I'll quickly jump on that, and it's got all my GFX and basically everything that I've made so far all on this website. And I'll also be uploading things like tutorials, and I'll be doing my services. I'll be giving away freebies. You can contact me if you want me to make you stuff. It'll have all my VFX, GFX uploaded. It'll have project files. But I'm currently building it, so it's not complete. It was nowhere near complete, but it's getting there, which is the main thing. So the link will be down in the description, and you'll always be able to see it in the About page in Digital Community. But right, getting on with the tutorial. So to be able to make this, obviously you've got to have the clip recorded, and you've got to be able to have something on the lines of After Effects or something similar to that, so you can basically render out the cinematic that you've recorded in your game and render it out as a JPEG sequence. And you do that so you can open it up in Boju, and I'll show you how that works when After Effects decides to load and doesn't crash and decides to be nice. But my Team Taj that I was doing, cinematics, and it's right here. So this is what I basically started off with. It was practically nothing. I'll just make it a little bit smaller just because it will kill my computer right now. It's running so many things, but literally just a scene recorded in Black Ops 2 in dolly mode, and it looks pretty nice, and it just goes on. I was going to do something around here, but I decided not to, which would have looked okay, but I just didn't think it was necessary. So hopefully when this loads I'll be able to show you, but when you render it out it will look, hopefully, yeah, it will look something like this, where you've got a bunch of sequence images of the video, and you would just be able to import this into Boju. Right, so now After Effects has finally loaded. Pretty much, it's going to come up with an error message first. God, I love Windows 8. Right, here we go. So we're going to make this a new project, so I'm just going to import the actual clip that I've recorded. So we're going to go over to the cinematics, drag the studio scene in, but make sure you're on project first. Drag the studio scene in, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this into a new comp down here, and as you can see it's all spaced out nicely in this area. I'm going to set it to quarter so I can just see it a lot easier. It will render out a lot quicker. And yeah, this is what it looks like at the moment. Completely nothing there. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to find the point where it starts moving, which is actually straight away by the looks of it. Yep, so that's fine, and we're going to go to the point where we think we're finished. We don't want to see it anymore. And on this one I'm just going to stop it about there. It doesn't need to be any further. So I'm just press Control Shift D, delete the bit on the right, press N so the timeline drags over, right click, trim work to comp, and then you've got your cinematic all in this small little composition here. I'm actually going to go back a frame, press N, trim work to comp, and now once you've done that, you've got basically your work area is just literally your cinematic scene. So what we're going to do now is going to composition, add to render queue. We're going to set this to best settings. I'm going to go H point, no I'm not going to go JPEG sequence, that's my final render settings, but when this loads again, go to JPEG sequence. And the reason why I use JPEG is it's the best quality image that you're going to get. So if you want to keep the quality at the highest you can, make sure you have it on JPEG, and then format options, make sure it's on maximum at 10, and just keep baseline on standard. So we're going to press OK, and I'm going to save this into here. I'm just going to call this probably, right, tutorial, and we're just going to keep that in here, and we're just going to call this sequence, right, sequence, yes, and we're going to go save, and I'm going to hit this up with a render. So this is probably going to take a little while. Not long really, but my computer's probably going to die, so I'll cut this and I'll be back as soon as it's done. Okay, so the cinematic is just rendered and it should be saved in my partition, and it'll be a sequence. So what we'll do is once we've got our little sequence is we'll open up Beaujeu. Once I find tutorial, sequence, there we go. Right, so you got your little cinematic here, and yeah, so there's your little cinematic sequence. So I'm going to open up Beaujeu quickly. Hopefully that one won't take too long, but it probably will. So we're just going to be fingers, I better close this, don't save, go away. Okay, so now wait for Beaujeu to load. Now Beaujeu's just, if you're wondering what that is, you're thinking I've never used that in my life. That's just, it's a tool that just motion tracks your clips, so it'll make it look a lot nicer. I guess it's better than, or I think it's better than third-party plugins for After Effects. So Beaujeu's just a separate program specifically designed to motion track your clips to make them at the best as possible. So once it's loaded like it has there, which is pretty awesome, we're just going to import our sequence. So we're just going to press import sequence. So as long as you follow these steps, you'll get hold of Beaujeu. Pretty simple. It's not difficult, but the most difficult thing is probably finding your clips in this thing. Right, okay, so tutorial, sequence, and you just always click on the first one, which is 0, 0, how many zeros you have, just click on that one, the first one, press open. Now this bit's pretty important. You're going to make sure that the best settings to ever record in, if you ask any editor, is always 59.94 FPS. That is the best one for console. That is, obviously if you can go higher on PC then that's amazing, but 59.94 is the best that you can achieve. So I recorded raw clip at 59.94. If you recorded in 30 then just use 30, but the motion track will be a little bit off. Well, it won't be off, it will just be laggy. It's just not as nice. So 59.94, you have to do that twice and hit apply twice. I'm not sure why, when you do it the first time the clip loads at 59.94, and I think the scene loads at 59.94 after. So just make sure you do that and then just press close, and you just want to hit up track features, and you're just going to go all frames, sequence 1, leave it like that. I head over to advanced, and I usually go up a little bit. I go up to the one before. It takes a little bit longer, but it just makes sure you get all the motion track. It makes it look fantastic, and to be honest the top one doesn't really do much more. I'm probably overkilling it because it's quite a simple cinematic scene. There's quite a lot of colour differentiation, and you've got to consider that when you do record your cinematics. You've got to imagine it before you physically do it. And yeah, this one's pretty simple. You know where it's going to be. It's so many different things. I mean, you've got brown on green there. It's going to be easy to motion track. So I'll be back. I'll cut this again, obviously not to bore you, but once this is done, I'll be back. So yeah, see you in a sec. Alright, so here it is, motion tracked. Well, partly, but yeah, motion tracked. And as you can see, when I scroll through the timeline, we've got our motion track scene, and you can see the little red little flashes going around the screen, and this is just showing you frame by frame the motion track of the scene. So what you want to do next is to obviously go to your camera solve, and you want to go optimize camera path smoothness. It'll only be sequence 1 anyway, so just keep it on that. And what you're going to do is you're just going to hit start. So once this is starting, what it's going to do is it's going to turn your red pluses into little points, and you use those points to set where you want your motion track to be, basically. And it's going to look pretty nice, hopefully, so it won't take too long. It gets stuck on 86 for most people for some reason, but hopefully it's not responding. That's not good. You better respond. 86, come on. But yeah, it goes through frame by frame and just analyzes the scene and just makes sure that when you put something in it, it will just sit in that particular point. So that's what we're going to be doing. And it'll be done. There we go. Boom. Right. So as you can see now, you've got yellow and blue points. The blue points, there's nothing wrong with them. I tend to use yellow. They tend to be a little bit more stable, I find. And you can see some of the blue points disappearing. Yellows seem to be points that stay throughout the scene. The blue's a bit, you miss it sometimes. You don't always see that point, and it's just a little bit. There's nothing wrong. If it is a point that you really need, then just go for it. I can't remember exactly what points I used to make the motion track for the P, but I'm guessing it's the floor that I used. I used the this wooden board here, so I know that I want a P, a letter P that I made, or the logo, for example. It could be text, it could be anything, but I wanted it on here. So to do this, I'm going to do a X-axis, Y-axis, and a Z-axis, and that will give me my scene geometry. Now this is pretty simple. It might sound complicated, but it's really not. So to be able to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the 2 points here, go to scene geometry. So I've selected one and I've held control and selected the other. So this is going to be my X-axis. So this is running along the bottom. This is going to be the floor. So my scene geometry, call from hint. I usually don't do Y-axis, so I'm probably not going to do it, but we're just going to see what happens. I'm going to connect it to selected, and I'm going to add another chord from hint, and I'm going to call this a Z. And the Z's quite important because this tells you exactly sort of what the floor, how the level. So when you think of something as flat, the Z will help you if it's tilted, or it will give you like that sort of surface so it sits flush against the floor. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but it improves it. So once you've connected the selected with the Z-axis, you just update the chord frame. I always do it a few times just to make sure. Then I add a test object, and as you can see, it sits quite nicely on the floor. So I'm just going to move this over here, and if I go through the frames, you can see that the test object stays in that particular place that I made the scene geometry, which is brilliant. That's what you want. So now you know that your scene is motion tracked. There's no way that ladybird's going anywhere. It doesn't fly off into the scene somewhere else. It just sits nicely and it stays nicely in that place, which is like exactly what you want. So once you're happy with your test object, you're happy with the scene. If you're not happy with the scene, usually you would just go back to your scene geometry, change the points up, make sure you got your X going on the floor, Z is finding the level, so you go diagonal, and the Y-axis usually is just height. And I don't ever do height because sometimes it messes it up, so I leave it as just the X-axis and the Z-axis, and you just can't go wrong. And even if the ladybird isn't facing the right way, like the letter P wasn't facing towards the window, it was actually facing towards me, you can always rotate it, you can always slightly move it in Cinema 4D. It does not make a difference, so please bear that in mind. It will not be fixed there, you can move it. So we're going to do that right now. So I'm just going to delete the test object. You don't have to, but I will anyway. It's a habit. So export the camera solve. I'm going to call this a Cinema 4D file, so that's what I'm going to be editing it in. I'm going to save this to wherever my project file is or my folder. It's always best to make a folder when doing cinematics so you just don't lose everything. So just save it in tutorial. I'm just going to name it as untitled projects. There's no other Cinema 4D files that I'm going to have, so I can't get confused. You always scale a scene by 100, and I want the whole scene to be motion tracked. I'm just going to say I want the whole scene that's there now just to make it easier. So yeah, camera soft 1, Cinema 4D, scale by 100, hit save, and then we're done in Bezier. I'm just going to save the file in case anything has gone wrong, which it shouldn't do, but it could. So let's press save. So the next step of this tutorial is now to edit in Cinema 4D. Now what I've done here is I've added these plugins into the files that I've created, and the idea of this is that when I have the Lightroom you won't be able to use it unless you have these plugins. So what I've done is I've made a little folder inside this this project file that I'm going to send across. It will be obviously a link on my website, so I'll link you on the YouTube channel. You just download it from my website, and it will be a WinRAR file type, and you just extract it, and it will obviously have all my project files in here, and it'll also have so far these two Gorilla Scale Light Kit. And what these Lib4D files enable you to do is be able to use a Lightroom that I've set up or I've downloaded before, and that you can use in this as well. So to be able to actually install these onto your computer, you just want to highlight them both, open up a new window, and scroll down to your it tends to be local disk C, and then you choose either program files or x86, and then from there you choose obviously Maxon and then Cinema 4D, but obviously I don't have it on mine, so mine's in Documents, Cinema 4D. Open that up, and then I've got my library, and it'll be in Browser, and I've got all my Lib4D files in here. So all you would need to do is technically is just to highlight these two, drag them into your library browser, and then restart your Cinema 4D if you have it open. If you don't, then perfect, and then you'll be set and ready to go, and this template, or will be a template, you'll be able to use. So if you don't have it, the text won't look nice at all, it will look completely off. So when you open Cinema 4D after you've rendered it out, or not rendered, you've exported your 3D scene, make sure you do not delete top null. Yeah, that is basically your reference points and your camera. Yeah, your reference points and your camera, and just make sure you do not delete that at all, okay? That is your most important bit. So the first step in Cinema 4D is to double click in this rectangle box, open up your material, and select the sequence that you made. So you want to open up your Studio Cine, press no, and you're going to head over to animation and calculate at 513 frames, and all that will do is it will make sure that it's a sequence. So you want to head over to here, select your background, and drag your material straight onto your background, and you'll see that when you scroll through the timeline that you just see it tracked those arrows in a perfect point where you want it to be. Now this is what I struggle with when I make my motion tracks. For some reason, if I make the text, this is why I had to re-record this actually this time, because I messed up. It's probably why I cut a little bit, but I haven't missed anything out, by the way. It's completely carrying on from where I was, which is a pain because I literally got right to the end. But what I realised was when I've made my text here, if I go MoGraph, MoText, this is how you make text, and wait for it to load. As I do have a lot of fonts as well. You have to, for the effect that I did, for the breaking up of the letter P, I had to basically crack the text, and if you move it around, for some reason, if I move it around and everything, it breaks. It won't work. It doesn't seem to work properly. So the best, if you want to copy exactly what I did and you have Throwsy or Nitroblast, what I could strongly suggest to you is change the text what you want. So I'm going to call it tutorial, and you'll see it change. It's not in the perfect place at the moment, I can see that, but what I'll do is I'll choose the font that I want first. So I'm not going to move anything, I'm just going to choose the font, and I'll wait for it to load because I literally have 2,000 fonts, so it's going to take the mic. So load. Right, there we go. You can change the font to something else. Obviously, if you don't have it, then you won't be able to use the font that I've got. So let's go on to, let's choose a random font. I think Vertigo Upright was a good font that I tried to use last time. So let's see if it's still there. Vertigo Upright, I'm sure that was the one I used. I'm pretty sure it was, but it doesn't matter anyway if it is or if it isn't. I think it was Typograph. Is it Typograph? Sad that I can remember. Yeah, I think it was Typograph Pro. Yeah, we used that one. That's a nice font. Nice, clean, simple, easy to read, not complicated, straight to the point. Right. So what I would do then is I would just add the depth that I want, not the height. So you click on your mode text, go to object, and alter the depth to whatever you feel like's nice or whatever. So I'm gonna put the depth to something like that for now. I don't want it to be too thick. Probably like that. So what I'm gonna do now is, if you want the cracked text, do this. If you don't, you can edit. You can move it around before you want to edit it. But something I want to make clear is, if you want to change the way, if you want to rotate the text, make sure you do it from up here, not from this bit here. This bit rotates the scene. It doesn't rotate the text, it just rotates the scene. So if I say, oh yeah, look, that looks okay now, but I've rotated the scene, not the text, and that looks okay. But then you go to play it, and then you're like, oh my god, it just snapped back, like what's it doing? But you have to actually rotate the text, not the scene. The scene is just there so you can see the text, or you can see it in 3D mode. As soon as you scroll back through the timeline, it'll snap back to where it actually is supposed to be, or it actually is within the scene. So this is basically viewing it from a bird's eye. It's just having the free sort of motion, but the background still, basically. So what you want to do now is you click on your mode text, and as you said, the depth has changed, which is what you want. You want to add a plugin, and this is where you actually want to make your material first. The material is pretty crucial. So I'm going to you can do it the other way, but we'll just do it this way in case you don't want to do cracked text. So I always make it soft shadow, a little bit off white. It's quite a nice colour in Cinema 4D. And I want to also add a reflection, and I want to make it quite reflective. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to drag this onto my mode text. So when I pre-render it out, and I see what it looks like, it looks okay, but it looks pretty horrible because there's no Lightroom. So the next step for me to do is to add the plugin called Throwsy, and this will break my text into as many pieces as I want. So 40 pieces for Roni and break now. And what this will do is it will break every single letter in my text into 40 pieces. So hopefully it'll probably take a little while. There we go, it's going a bit faster now. But this will break all my text into 40 pieces, so that when I add the transform effect to it, it will be basically, how many letters are there in tutorial? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 times by 4, 32, 320 pieces basically. And that's all going to come in from, yeah, that's right, I think, yeah, 320 pieces, and it's going to be basically a huge sort of swarm of different effects, and it's going to come in and it's going to look nice. That's basically what I did. However, I did it on one object. I didn't do it on loads of. This is practically what this is reading it as is 8 objects, 8 letters. So one letter is an object, and it's breaking at 40 per object. With the P, it was just one object, and that was only 40 pieces. So it's going to be a lot of pieces in this. I didn't actually need to break it that much, but we'll just see how it looks. But in the meantime, as I said, I'm going to have all the files into the folder. So I don't even know if I'm repeating myself a little bit, because obviously I'm remaking this. I want to make sure I cover everything so I don't get any confusion in the questions at the bottom. in the comments, things like that. But obviously, if you have any questions, please do comment. And another thing is, if you do have any video suggestions, such as like graphics, video editing, if you see anything I've done and you on my website and you want to know how to do it, just okay, that's my brother and sister, so yeah, bear that. Jesus Christ. But just basically comment on my YouTube, message me on Skype, anything like that. If you have my Skype, I'll have it on my website. I'm going to add that soon, so just contact me and then I'll be able to sort that out for you. So now that you can see that the Throwsy is done, which is awesome, I'm just going to scroll through. You see it's there, brilliant. However, if I hit play, you see it drop, and you want it to stay still because that's looking really weird. It breaks up and you're like, that's disgusting. And what I'm going to do to set it back to normal, is just drag it back to 0, is I'm going to turn off all these layers on the dynamics and untick dynamic. That's important because when you add the animation, it will drop otherwise. Now it's going to stay still. It's going to stay nice and still in the same place. Brilliant. Now what you can do is move your text around once I put it into a group. So select all your text. You can either do it by pressing Control and clicking everything, or just clicking the top one, holding down Shift and then pressing the bottom one, Alt G, and calling this tutorial. Doesn't matter what you call it, but I'm going to call it tutorial. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it like that. That's just going to stay how it is. And I want to add this material to my text. This is the material that I want. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that would not work. So let's add this onto my entire text. Let's see if that works. I'm pretty sure it has, but we'll find out in a minute. So we're going to just leave it on the group for now. And what you want to do is just turn, matter of fact, I might as well turn all these layers on just to make sure you can see it, it's visible. And now we're going to rotate the actual text itself. So you just get your rotation tool at the top here, and you're just going to drag it to where you want it to be. I want mine to be about there, and I want to move it to, I want to higher it up, I want it to be further towards me a little bit, and I want to drag it out to the left. So now when I'm in Cinema 4D, you can see that's what it looks like. It looks quite nice. I'm dragging it a tiny bit further forward, a little bit to the right, and you can see that it's nicely tracked in this position. So in my opinion, I think this whole thing, it needs to be rotated a little bit towards me, but you just mess around with it until you get to the perfect sort of place that you're happy with. So when you scroll through, you can see it's motion tracked nicely in the scene. It looks fairly realistic, the motion track, and when you render it, it doesn't look very nice. I mean, that's horrible. So the next step for me is to, I'm going to move this down a little bit, about there, it looks better, and then it looks, yeah, right. The next step for me would be to merge my Lightroom. This will be included anyway. I mean, you'll have it in the project file, so it's all cool beans. I'm just going to drag this down, and I'm going to go into the 3D editor, not the rotation tool yet. I'm just going to 3D edit so I can see around the scene, I can see around the text that I've made. And I'm just going to use the rotation tool to rotate the Lightroom, and for it to match up with the rest, if it's not going to be stupid, with the text. So it's going to look like that. I want to sit in the middle of the text, so I get this best sort of light I can out of this Lightroom. So I'm going to drag this back a tiny bit, like that, and I'm just going to go onto extrude nerves and delete them. So your text will now be in the perfect place, no matter where you are in the Lightroom. And you won't be able to see this, by the way, when you render it out, because it's got a compositing tag, so don't worry about that. So you want to change the settings, and you're going to go to Effect, Ambient Occlusion, Global Illumination, and Object Glow. Obviously, if you're using my template, then you won't have to do that. But if you are starting from a completely new project with a new motion track, then that's what you're supposed to do if you want to use this Lightroom. And it makes the text a little bit sharper and softer around the edges. But however, that's really bright and doesn't look nice. So to fix that, you add a sphere over the top of the text like this. You drag it out with the scale tool and you just move it into position over the tutorial sign or whatever sign that you're making. So once you scaled it to the right size, I'm just going to move this completely over. I'm going to zoom out, move it around. See it's still sticking out a little bit, so I'm just going to scale this up again. It's about there. It doesn't matter if the sphere actually goes through the Lightroom, it really doesn't make a difference. And you can see that the sphere is now fully covering the text, which is brilliant. So now you're going to think, okay, but there's a huge sphere in the way, which you're right, but this is what you have to do to stop a huge white ball in the middle of your screen. So you go right click, Cinema 4D tags, and you hit compositing, which is there, and you tick off cast shadows, receive shadows, composite in background on, and seen by a camera off. So now what that does is it doesn't have any shadows or anything on the sphere, but it will have a composite in background, so it matches the background throughout all the frames. And actually I need to add the material first before we do that. So you actually add your sequence material, so now when I render it, it will actually copy the surroundings, so now it actually looks part of it. The text now has the reflection, it has the lighting, the feel around the map, because it's inside that sphere. And that's crucial, because now you can see the text actually kind of does sort of blend in with certain parts of the map. I mean, obviously you've got to change the colour if you want it to match the wall behind, but you want it to stand out, and a nice white colour like that actually does suit this map, so for studio. So what you now want to do, if you want to make it a little bit more reflective, things like that, what you could do is change the material. So I've made my material here, and it's this one. If I move it up a little bit, yeah, there you go. It's that one there. So if I want to make a little bit more reflection, I can by just upping this. And this will just add more reflection to the text, and you'll be able to see it on the font itself. And you can see that you can start seeing reflections from the map. So if you want more, you just add more. If you want to change the colour, just change the colour. It's pretty simple stuff. So as you can see now, the text is really glossy. Actually, it's really nice. Like if I change the place here, I move it a little bit further over the timeline. Yeah, you got your nice font. It looks really clean, nice sort of thing, and that's what most people will probably just end up with. It's just something like that. You see it in most edits. People just go through a 3D motion track like that and just leave it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. Sometimes it looks nice, it looks clean, it's easy to read. But if you want to take it that one step further, make it personal, try and connect a little bit more like I did, then this is the more advanced bit. So with your tutorial text that you got here, what you want to add now is a plugin called Transform, and you just want to literally drag your tutorial straight into the replace me sign and hit refresh. Oh, there you go. One other thing that you want to make sure you do, just to make this easier, is just with the sphere, just double click on the top to make it red, so you can't see it, but when you render, it will still have the same effect. Just so in design view you can actually see what you're doing, because that sphere is really annoying. So make the start frame something like, I'm going to make mine 20, because at about 20 it's about the right place where I want it to start. And I want to make this to transform in. I want it to transform into something. So it's going to have nothing at the beginning, it's going to be completely clear, and then it's going to go into something. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to add a transform. There we go. Right, the next thing that I want to do is I want to do the end frame. So let's find a point where I think this would be good where the effect ends. So let's say about 280. 280 would be a good point. That's roughly where I did it before. So let's just say 280 frames through the clip, and I want this effect to end. So this is what's going to happen so far. It's all going to come in like this. It's all going to go mental, and it's going to transform into the 380 pieces that it's got, and it's going to basically make up the word tutorial. It's pretty insane. I mean, it looks good. this is one effect, by the way. There's loads. I'll show you how to change the effect, but this is what it looks like midway. This is one frame. I mean, this looks absolutely crazy, right? It looks nice, it's so different, and it just gives the clip something unique about it. It's not the same as everyone else's. It's slightly different, and you just think, wow, okay, like, this guy, he doesn't copy, he makes his own thing. And at the moment, not a lot of people use this. I mean, it's so effective, and I'm surprised that not a lot of people do this sort of stuff. So it's probably going to be a big thing soon, so I would have thought a lot of people are going to use it. And I mean, you've got loads here that you can choose from. You can make your own, and you've got these wonderful little things. But with these plugin, if you don't have this plugin, obviously you've got to try and find it on the internet, or you've got to pay for it. So that's another thing that you're going to have to think about. So if you do have this plugin, or if you don't have it, I strongly suggest you get it and just follow on for what I'm doing. But as I said, you've got different sort of effects. You've got a hurricane over here. It should still be the same thing. Yeah, it literally comes out of nowhere, these little pieces, and they build it up. They flung out from the distance, and they just build up. See that all over here, it's like debris everywhere, and it just builds up the scene, which is pretty cool. It's pretty dope. So let's have a look at another one. It's got a fountain, and it just literally just waterfalls in, and it's pretty beautiful. It's a beautiful plugin. And obviously with the reflection as well and things like that, it's just going to look so good. Like, there's so many different things you can do with this. It's mental. And yeah, I mean, that's practically what I did with mine. I can't remember what effect I used. I think it was just a build-in effect, like a build, not a building, like a something you live in, like a build-in effect. But I'm not sure what it was called. It might have been Pop. I don't know, Pop. No, it can't have been Pop. Pop looks pretty cool though. All those pieces, and they just come together. We got, if I remember, Swarm. I think it was. No, I don't think it was Swarm. It was Dissolve. I think one was Dissolve, but it was inverse. So basically, mine probably was. Let's have a look. Dissolve. Oh, it is Dissolve. It probably was Dissolve. Got Dissolve here, and it's basically all the chunks, they sort of get bigger and they fall. Yeah, so that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. The chunks get bigger, and I had the idea of, okay, so let's imagine it hits the floor. So it's gonna drop at the last minute, and I wanted to hit the floor, and all I did was that was literally it. Obviously mine was, my text or my image, my P would have been lowered down, but the idea was, in After Effects, I'd add the smoke, I'd add the color correction, I'd scale, add the camera wiggle, and add the shake. In Cinema 4D, this is literally what it does. It just makes the scene like this, and that is practically it for Cinema 4D. Run through the render settings, and yeah, the render settings, they're pretty simple. But obviously you've got to follow and change it at your will in terms of frame rate. If you're in 60 frames, then just copy exactly what I do. So go over to your render settings and go over to your output and make sure everything is selected. Just go all frames and leave it as it is. Leave your width and height as it is. Go to all frames, make sure that's on, or else it'll only render the one frame you're on now. Go to your save output, and I'm going to go straight to Extra F, tutorial, sequence. Yeah, no, I'm just going to leave it there. Right, I'm just going to hit save as Lala, and I want it to be a QuickTime movie because that's a good quality. Options, wait for it to load, H.264, and I want mine to be at 60 frames. So I hit OK, I leave it like that, everything looks fine. Got all my settings on, and I would literally hit the middle button there. I'm not going to render this right now because this would take a little while, and I really don't have the time to sit here and just render it out at the end. But this is practically what it would look like at this frame. You can just imagine how it would come in like this. It would just look so clean. So that's how you do it in Cinema 4D. Now I'm just going to run through After Effects real quick on a couple things maybe that you could learn from it, maybe how I did some of the things. So it's pretty simple, to be fair. After Effects is it's a really nice tool to use, and yeah, awesome. So if you did just have the normal text, you could use some of these features. Obviously, I'm not going to do smoke because smoke was sort of an idea I sort of had, so I'm not going to release that because, you know, that was cool. That smoke thing, to get that in the right place, that took me time to figure out. So it's pretty easy, but you literally just, you just rotate it and put it in the right place. But you have to keyframe it yourself in After Effects, and so I didn't motion track that. But yeah, once you've done that as well, you've got your color corrections. So if you have color corrections, that's really nice to have in edits. It keeps it from being boring, and also makes it look. I always find that the quality of the video at the end looks better as well. And yeah, color correction, it sort of covers up any sort of pixelation or anything. So color correction is really nice to have. So let's open up our video. Let's have a look at this. Where is, I think it was Team Taj at the beginning here, and Studio Cinematic and Cine. We're gonna add some of these things in. So let's add Cine 1. So I think that was the first cinematic I did. That was without the 2D text as well. So that'll be another tutorial of the 2D text. So editing in After Effects only. But that's really simple. That won't take long. Cinema 4D is long-winded, but it looks nice at the end. So yeah, here it is by itself. This is literally like raw. As I said, I'm just gonna RAM preview this in quarter. The quality is gonna look pretty awful, but you can just make out what it actually is. And as you can see, the text, it just, or the letter P, it all dissolves in like this. And just wait for it to pre-render, because, you know, After Effects doesn't play in real time, which sucks compared to Vegas, but Vegas sucks compared to After Effects with the editing, in my opinion. And you see, you've got a nice reflection on there as well on the P. And literally, that was it. Like, everything was done in After Effects. So the P comes in and it drops, but there's nothing else happening. So I literally had to edit the whole thing to make it look realistic. But one thing I want to point out is, you can see that the reflection on that P looks really nice when you have it in still frames, and it makes up good reflection, and the colour just blends in with the actual scene as well. That's a good thing as well to consider. So what you want to do to make this look a little bit better, I added scale to mine, so I'm just going to put this up to 110. And the reason why I had scale is so I can add wiggle, things like that. I might actually up this up to 120 because, yeah, 120. Right, so I'm going to add rotation. I'm going to press Alt and click on the stopwatch. And we're going to add wiggle, and I'm going to make it 1, 2, and this will basically wiggle the screen side to side. And I'm going to press P for position, Alt click on that, and also do the same thing. I'm going to press wiggle, but this one's going to be 110, so that when it plays through, the scene will be wiggling around. So if I put this in half, the screen rotates whilst you're moving along the camera. It gives you like an authentic camera wiggle, basically. It's quite a nice sort of effect to have. And I'm going to add a new solid as well, and I'm going to make this just a black solid. I'm going to shrink this down to about there, and this is basically just going to be a cinematic bar. So when this copies as well, I'm going to add one at the bottom of the page or the video if it responds, which would be really nice. There we go. So now you've got like a cinematic bars. Sometimes they look nice, sometimes they don't, but in this is what I used. It's kind of big actually. Alter the scale, try 110. Then you can alter the position of it as well. Move this up a little bit so that when it comes round, it looks like that. It goes boom on the floor, and it freezes about there because ooh, there you go. Right, so it looks like that, and it just basically, there's nothing there at the moment. So when it hits the floor, I want to make the screen shake. That is the idea that I would like to perform. So let me just reduce these a little bit, about there. So to make the twitch effect or the shake effect, use a plugin called Twitch. So go layer, new adjustment layer, like that, and then go to Twitch. And what I want to do is I just want to drag this Twitch layer onto here. Call this Twitch. Amount 9. Leave this at 8. These are all my Twitch settings, by the way. They're really good. They're useful. Hit the slide up, and then go to operator controls, slide. Make this 5. Make this 180, and keyframe, slide twitches, and slide amount. Yeah, it's sad that I know everything about Twitch. And now what I'm going to do is go 2 frames forward, and I'm going to hit up 120, and I'm going to make it something about like 4. You don't want it to be over the top, but you want to drag these underneath the black bars as well, so it doesn't affect the bars, because adjustment layer affects everything else underneath. So I only want it to affect the clip behind, or else it will look unreal. Like not as in a good way. It look unreal as unrealistic. So what's going to happen is the P comes down and it goes boom and shakes like that. I'm just going to actually just render out this short bit here just to show you. It might be over the top, you can always alter it, but it always does in pre-render mode. You just, oh yeah, I haven't stopped it yet. So the one way you stop it is by going to a certain point, hitting 0, like a few seconds after, hit 0 there, and it will turn it off. So the effect will slowly die down, and it will go back to normal. So it goes boom, and then you're able to carry on like that. I mean, it's a little bit too much for a little effect like that, but yeah, you get the idea. You can either turn down the settings from 120 to make them like 100, or you could even just reduce the time, so it's like a big shake but not for so long. And by doing that, you click on your little Twitch layer, hit U on the keyboard, and it brings up basically all the effects that you've used on that layer so far. And you can see the keyframes that you've made. I want to drag these keyframes over, make it shorter, so I don't want the effect to happen for so long. So I'm just going to drag this over a little bit. Okay, so there we go. So the effect doesn't happen for so long. It's literally just for the It's only just for when the P hits the floor. So boom, and then that's it. So it's practically what it's pretty much exactly the same as what it was in the team touch. Yeah, nice. So that's what it looks like at the moment. All I then added was smoke, which I really can't bother to do, and color correction. I'm going to give it a go with color correction. It takes forever to load, so this might even crash my computer. So let's just give this a go. Let's call this color correction. So CC, I'm going to add. I've got Magic Bullet looks, so Red Giant Color Suite, Magic Bullet looks. If you have that, brilliant. If you use something else, use it. But this is what I use, so I'm going to hit edit, and this is going to take about 10,000 years to load if everything opens. So I'm just going to hold back and just hope to God it loads pretty quickly. If I've got Cinema 4D open, I'm going to close that. Oh God, no. This is going to crash. I've got like 1,000 color corrections, so many downloaded. It's ridiculous. It really is. But it's worth it. So what I'm going to do, if it doesn't load in about 5 seconds, I'm going to pause the video right here. If it doesn't load in 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alrighty, here we go. So it's just loaded up. It's probably gonna crash. Don't do this to me. Okay, so we've got a downloaded folder, and that's what I called it. And I've got my ton of color corrections, but I just realised something. When I went to close Cinema 4D, I didn't save the project file, so you don't actually have, or I don't actually have, any of that project that I just did, which kind of sucks. I guess it really does suck, but I think it's good for you to go out and do your own cinematics anyway and try it for yourself. I'm still going to include everything like the Lightroom, obviously, and the plugins, but just make sure that you obviously install those and keep the Lightroom separate. Make sure also that you merge the Lightroom, not create it in a new file called with the Lightroom, because if you save it, then you won't ever have that Lightroom by itself again, if that makes sense. So just make sure you either duplicate the file and back it up somewhere else, or I guess you could just re-download it again, but yeah, what am I saying? But yeah, so I'll include everything that you're going to need, apart from things like Throwsy and the transform tool, but you'll just be able to make static text without the effects of explosions raining in if you don't have those, which is not a big deal. I mean, most people don't use it at the moment. They probably won't use it. I'm not sure why. I think it looks good personally. Maybe they don't, but yeah, everyone's got their own opinion. So what I'm going to do is, now this is loaded up, I'm just going to cancel this, because I have to do this for it to work, or else my whole computer just says nah mate and just crashes. So let's go Twitch on top of that layer and underneath the black bars. So I don't want any colour correction on those black bars. So yeah, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a colour correction that I think looks good. Let's just choose any random colour. You know what? That will do. That will do. So I've chosen the colour correction. Oh my god. There we go. Let's put it in full res so you can see it. Wow. Very bright. Actually looks kind of cool. I like that. I don't know why I'm being sarcastic. But yeah, that looks good. Good colour correction. Makes it look a lot better. Pretty simple stuff. I mean, you can alter the colour correction by pressing T, changing the opacity if it's too strong, make it 60%. Yeah, you can always alter it. So if you want it flashes, I guess you could just, with colour correction, instead of actually adding flashes because you're cheap, you could just keyframe at 60, go a few frames forward, make it stronger at like 100. You can't go above 100, by the way. Just duplicate the layer if you want to make it 200 because you're cool. Yeah, and you go boom, and you're like, wow, god, this guy's cool. But no, that looks horrible, that's too much. And yeah, that is pretty much the smegma of cinematics. It is pretty simple. If you can't record, just try and grab some off of YouTube, some cinematics. So if you actually want me to go out and record cinematics, I'll do it. If you ask in the comments, if you want me to make like a cinematic pack, I will. I record with the best PVR at 720/60, so I will be able to do that, no problem, and you'll have good quality clips. So if you want me to record cinematics, if you want me to make a tutorial on something, just comment. If you see something on my website that you want me to show how I did, just comment. In one of these, either message me. I'm going to have my Skype soon built on my website. So yeah, that's just another thing. Obviously, just stay in tune with my YouTube page, which is obviously Digital Community, which is what you're watching it on now, and my website. It's coming out soon, so my services will be things like actually making graphics for a client. If you want me to make something for you, we'll talk about obviously cost, or I might even do it for free depending on if I know you or if I get something out of it, I guess. But this is my gallery at the moment, so you can actually see the work that I've done for teams and for other players. That's banners, things like that. So yeah, I guess that is practically it for scarce, yeah. But that's practically it for the motion track tutorial. So if you have any questions or you didn't understand, because it did cut out halfway through, I didn't miss anything, but I'm hoping I've said absolutely everything. But if you don't understand anything at all, just leave it in the comments. But this is how you make a sicky cinematic. So I hope you enjoy and.